Z szeregu raz, dwa.
Kiedy Bóg do nas mówi? Czasami zdarza mi się popełnić jakiś grzech, jakieś zło. Czasami myślimy, że niemożliwe, żeby Bóg tak chciał.
W imię Ojca i Syna i Ducha Świętego. Amen. O której masz się stawić w stolarni?
O 16. Drugi koniec kraju jest, nie?
A co, pękasz? Dasz radę.
A co, nie macie gdzie spać w tej stolarni?
W jakiej stolarni?
A skąd jesteś?
Księdzem jestem.
To ja przedstawię.
Zaprowadzę do proboszcza, ucieszy.
Gołąb Wojciech.
Ksiądz Tomasz.
Myślę, kto mógłby mnie zastąpić.
No ale co, mszę i wszystko?
I nie tylko.
Widziałem tablicę ze zdjęciami.
Bóg tak chciał. Bóg chciał zabić 7 osób?
Słyszałem, że ksiądz wypytuje o tego kierowcę. Nawet rozumiem ciekawość, tylko śledztwo jest już zamknięte.
Mam prawo rozmawiać z wiernymi, o czym tylko chcę.
Żadne seminarium nie przyjmiecie z wyrokiem.
Pani Lidia to co nieco mi już księdzu opowiadała.
Tak?
Po co wszystko rozpierdalasz, co?
Bo wiecie, w czym jesteśmy dobrzy? W skreślaniu. Pokazywaniu palcem. Wybaczyć to nie znaczy zapomnieć. Wybaczyć to kochać. Kochać kogoś pomimo jego winy. Jaka by nie była. Żeby proboszcz wrócił, bo ja naprawdę...
Tai sveiki visi ir šiandien prisijungę prie Kino pavasario vis dar vykstančio, kad ir šiek tiek sulėtintai, bet nepaliekančio be filmų žmonių, kurie šiandien yra strigę savo namuose. Ir labai džiaugiuosi, kad šiandien pavyko į svečius pakviesti Kino pavasario žiūrovų simpatijų prizą pelnusio filmo Kristaus kūnas režisierių Janą Komasą. So Janë Komasa, it's a great pleasure that you joined us, even though the festival is officially over, but we are still continuing, as I just told you before the broadcasting. And it's an incredible pleasure to have you here with us for this short conversation. Thank you so much for your time, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to learn that Corpus Christi was awarded with the Audience Award at your festival, and that the turnout was so huge. So and it's, you know, it's very empowering to hear from our Polish neighbors that you guys are doing great job in, you know, sustaining your festival, because it's not easy these times.
Jan, I believe that everyone is pretty interested in. I mean, it's probably that's the most successful film that you've ever done, even though it's not. I mean, you've done quite a few films that had a success in Poland, but this one was incredibly successful, you know, outside. And tell me a little bit about this feeling that when you reach out audiences that are outside from your home country, and then when you get into probably probably it's the dream for every European or world director to, go that far as the Oscar nomination. I mean, what's the feeling to be there already, almost at the top of everything?
Well, thank you. Well, it's I have mixed feelings about it. Probably I was more of a dreamer when I started making films, with my debut film Suicide Room, which premiered at Berlin Film Festival. It was 9 years ago. I was more I think I was more of a person who's like, where's the success? I was supposed to be the one who is making rounds with my film, etc., etc. And I was more like, I would say, maybe not ambitious, it's not the word, but I was hot-headed. And it took a few years for me to understand that this is not the thing. Like, obviously films are my obsession, but sometimes, especially with debuts, debut films, and I can see it in many other cases as well. I think for a lot of directors, especially men, I think it's a men thing as well. The ambition kills you, and you just want to spread your, creative vision everywhere. And if it doesn't work out that well, it worked very well, pretty well, at least for Suicide Room. But nevertheless, it was just a debut film, and usually debut films they don't get as much exposure. So it was sort of below my overblown expectations, and I remember it kind of hurt me and hurt my ego. And then it took me a few years to sort of understand that this is not the case. Like, my job is to make films, and that's it. My job is not to, I'm not a producer, although I happen to be one because I started producing recently because I want to help other filmmakers to make their films. But my job as a director is to make a film the best as I can, and to tell the story and tell it in the most original way I can come up with, but with a story which is true to me. And if it doesn't resonate with me, I should rather not do it. So I understood it, and I made Warsaw 44, which is a blockbuster in Poland. It was a period film about Warsaw Uprising in 1944. I made 2 TV series ever since. I made a lot of commercials. I usually work for a commercial business. I started as a commercial director. And then Corpus Christi, and with Corpus Christi, I was kind of subdued. I wasn't rushing. It was just, I wanted to make this film with intelligent, talented people, with the crew. I finally, after many years, I had the possibility to sort of collect my own people, not to follow producers' orders or something because I'm too young, or not so experienced, etc. I was fit to make this film, and I felt right. I felt it's my time to say something directly and not to rush my horses, just be myself. And I felt like I was breathing making this film. And my other film, The Hater, which is already on VOD in Poland. It was a crazy year. In 2018, I made 2 films. So yes, so basically, I think this saved me from the craziness of the festival circuit, which helps. If I was a debut filmmaker, like let's say Lajli, he made Les Miserables, but he's experienced, he's older than me, so he has certain, I would say, maturity, and I think I was immature when I started this 10 years ago. I think I'm a bit more experienced, and I can handle all this pressings and all the stress and all the expectations. I can handle definitely better. My sanity is more or less intact before and after making the film. So I was basically trying to keep myself sharp and not to exaggerate with anything, not to become too emotional about me going to the Oscars, which was, of course it's great, but it's a circus, and you have to work very hard. I spent around 4 months in the United States promoting Corpus Christi. I was shaking a lot of hands. I was patting a lot of backs. I was, I was showing my film. And it also sort of saved me from, like, it was a job, sort of, like it was a hard work. to spread the film and to keep myself intact and not to exaggerate with anything. So I think thanks to it and thanks to my experience, it went pretty well. Till this day, because there are some certain things, like I had this medical condition during the announcement of nominations, I was ill in the hospital in Los Angeles because I had some kidney stone problem. My kidneys failed me. So I was in such a pain. I don't remember much. I had, strong painkillers in my system. So till this day, I haven't really, I think, lived through the emotion of being nominated. I think it just happened so fast, so quickly. I haven't had any time to grasp it. When we started with Corpus Christi in September at Venice Film Festival, then Toronto, then Polish premiere of Corpus Christi, and then many other film events. I was in the United States working all the time. Then Christmas, then the announcement, then of nominations, and then I went to the Oscars. I came back, and it was coronavirus, and so now we're in the lockdown, basically self-isolation, and it's so crazy, it's so unreal, everything. That I think sort of it put on hold my sense of reality. So I think as for now, I think it's pretty healthy. Even though it's not so healthy outside.
Yeah, no, I think that maybe it will help to slow down a little bit some of the wrong processes in the world as well. But coming back to the movie, I think everyone noticed at the beginning of the film, it is stated that actually the film is based on the true facts. Tell us a little bit about the background, the story that you found, and the story that turned out to be a Corpus Christi film.
Well, actually, there's we have to differentiate between films based on facts. Oops. Someone is calling. Sorry, guys, just a small technical thing. Someone is calling me. Oh my goodness. Okay, I have to turn it off. Just a second. Okay, got it. So in terms of Corpus Christi, we have to differentiate between a film based on facts and inspired by facts. We decided to go the other route. It's inspired by true events. We have a lot of cases each year of people pretending to be priests, impersonating priests in Poland. I wasn't, aware of this phenomenon. I think it calls for a huge sociological study, but I didn't know about it. Apparently, it's the Polish thing. Mateusz Pacewicz, who started as a journalist, he wrote an article about the actual case from 2011 about a guy who was pretending to be a priest in a small community in Poland during Corpus Christi Christian holiday. Mateusz wrote an article about it, and then he was approached by producers who wanted to make a film out of the article. And Mateusz said, why don't I write it myself as my debut film as a scriptwriter? And he did it. And then he was working with Krzysztof Rak, producer and scriptwriter himself of our film, Corpus Christi. And then when it was finished, I think they've sent me the second draft of it. And I loved the concept. I had a lot of comments to it, but they were eager to, and they were nice enough to sort of take my comments into consideration and chose me as a director after they read my comments. And so I didn't know how much of this actual story, because I haven't read the article yet back then, how much of this original story is implemented in the script. And it's good because I was not contaminated with the original story. I love documentaries. I've made 2 documentaries myself. I love watching documentaries. They're very inspiring for me as a feature film director. And so I know if I would have read the original story, it would definitely contaminate me, and it would make my life, I think, a bit harder. So I didn't do it for a long time. I was working on the script I've gotten from Mateusz, and I gave him a lot of intuitive comments about his script. So I told him it would be better if we emphasize the juvenile detention center part in the script, so it's bigger, and the accident in the village also. So if we stress these 2 things more, then I think the story will be much more powerful. And Mateusz did it, and after a while, when I was happy with the script, I decided to read the article, and I was kind of amazed to learn that there was no juvenile detention center at all in the article, in the original story, and there was no accident. So I was basically stressing these 2 elements which were fictional, and I made them bigger, which sort of bent the story. The story mutated in something different. And I think it was good for the script, given, and for the film, given that the original character from the story, his name is Patrick. Patrick, after the movie's success, Patrick sort of decided to claim his rights for the story.
No.
And he was contacting the media here in Poland, so it became not a big scandal, but it happened to smell like a scandal. Like, it was just pre-scandalous. So we had to cut it, and we said, look, I didn't know about the story at all. I haven't read it. There's so many elements. We have lawyers here who just juxtapose your original story, what really happened in your life, with what we have on the screen, and it's 95% different. The only thing that stayed is that you were pretending to be a priest in a small community during Corpus Christi, and that there was some kind of a trade-off between you and the old priest, which we in our film is the alcohol. The old priest has an issue with alcohol addiction, but in the original story there was no alcohol. There was some kind of a health problem, and the old priest had to take vacation, and he was looking for somebody. He was literally looking for somebody to replace him. So there was a different motivations. Motivation. There was no criminal past of the main character. There was no accident in the village. The village was totally different. There was no church lady. There was no Martha, the girl in the film. We haven't heard of it. I haven't heard of it. So it's this. So the whole film is about something different. So that's why, sometimes it's better to separate the original story, definitely. With Warsaw 44, my film about Warsaw Uprising, I literally deliberately decided to have my story separated from any historical event, from any historical real people that were living, because I know if I do something by myself in the film, then definitely I would have legal issues, because everyone is entitled and has right to defend their good image in the court. So for us filmmakers, sometimes it's better to make inspired by real events rather than based on facts.
Yes, I was thinking that history, it's a very sensitive topic, but also church, which is, it's a central thing in the Corpus Christi. And we actually have a question related to that from Gabriela, from someone that is watching us now. And I'm going to read it. It says, after documentary, sorry for my pronunciation, Tilko Nikomu,
yes,
by journalist Tomasz Sekielski, about cases of immorality in church walls, it's hard to try to do movies about church in Poland. Is it hard? Or Poland is very open now to show films like Corpus Christi now as a chance to recover after that bad reputation. Thank you. Great work.
Thank you, Gabriela. Well, this is a very good question, because it shows, Polish church has a special role here in our system. It's sort of, if we compare it, it's sort of closer to, it's closer to Ireland from 80s and 90s, maybe. Also, we have a certain history behind us. We have we have wars and communism, right? 50 years of communism. So church was the only place during these times, especially in Poland, in which you could feel free, because it was sort of the oppressive systems that we had in Poland. They were sort of trying to do everything not to antagonize with church. That much, at least. They were there was some kind of invigilation and surveillance, but that's it. In church. So a lot of artists and intellectuals, intelligentsia, they were basically, they felt secure and safe in church. And church was a great shelter for a lot of people. My parents as well, my father is an actor, my mother was a singer, and then she worked for Polish television during 90s. So, I can tell by myself, like, I was very much connected with church, and it wasn't religious. It was just the way of expressing ourselves. It was natural, kind of. And so when the church, when we gained independence in 1989, the church became unnecessary for us, because you could, at least in theory, but it's basically you could, publish books, make films, nobody would censor you, and so more and more with each and every year, the church sort of we drifted away from church. So now I feel like church there's a huge crisis of religion in Poland, especially Catholic religion, because it was the biggest in terms of quantity of believers. And there's a lot of people who just don't practice going to church. Church is losing their believers, churchgoers. Usually the medium, I would say the average age of a person in attending church masses is very high. So I think it's usually older people stick to church as the barrier of traditional values, but less and less. And church is sort of uneven. It's scattered all over the place. Church, for example, church in southern part of Poland is very traditional, church in Warsaw or in big cities or in more western part of Poland is pretty open. And I think there's a huge shift and change in Poland. So finally people started to admit there's a problem a few years ago, and that's why probably the film you mentioned, Tylko nie mów nikomu, which is, I don't know, the English title of it is Just Don't Tell Anybody, I think. It was about pedophiles in church. Real cases, a documentary. And it was released on YouTube. So I don't know, we can check what was the number of views recently. I will check it, just a second.
But also there was clergy, which was really big in Poland.
Yes, it was a huge, yeah, so it's 23 million views on YouTube. Mm. A lot of people saw it in Poland. And it came with, as you said, clergy, which was watched by around 5 million viewers. Of like the turnout was amazing. It was of you couldn't get a ticket for it when it hit cinemas, you know, for like a month or something. So and people started to feel, you know, empowered. Like they started to, okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. We have skeletons in our wardrobe, so we have to just, you know, expose them. And suddenly, you know, a lot of people now are officially withdrawing from church. So Corpus Christi came right after these films. It was the documentary went out in, I think it was February last year, and Corpus Christi was out in September or October in Poland. And it was a different take. People, because there is action and there is reaction, right? So the action of talking about the truth about, you know, pedophiles in church, but also the system, church system, trying to cover it all, sugarcoat it, so nobody, you know, so there's no problem. So there was this systemic lie in church. That's one thing. That was the action. But the reaction of believers was, we Christians are being attacked. We have bad apples. We have to admit it, and it's true. But we're basically being attacked by everybody. And there's more and more people, especially young ones, because you have to know there was this polling, and young people are predominantly not attending masses, which is Poland was, I think, it was the Pew Research polling, and we were on the, I think we were #1 in the world in terms of secularization of our nation. So there's a huge shift in Poland now, and so Christians, a lot of Christians, Catholics felt like they're living in a besieged tower. So, and then comes Corpus Christi. And obviously at first the church was terrified with the film. Like it was not easy to make this film. Just have to say the bishop from the region we were shooting in this very traditional, very conservative region of Poland, in the south, and up in the mountains, and the bishop wasn't very happy with it, so he basically said, okay, you do what you please, but I will never let anybody of you with a camera in any of the churches. And he didn't allow us to shoot in church in this little village we were shooting in the whole film in, and in the region. So we basically had to reschedule the whole shooting period, and we had to, by the end of the shooting period, we moved with the whole crew 500 kilometers to the west central, closer to Warsaw, where we find a church that allowed us in. But it was, you know, it was pretty circuitous. We had to use our friends of friends of friends support to make it in a silent way. And so the church and believers and, you know, Orthodox Christians were pretty terrified with the film. But then something strange happened when we finally hit cinemas here in Poland. People were like, well, this film doesn't attack faith per se. It doesn't say, well, you believe in God, so you're stupid or something. It just shows sins of everyday life. And funny enough, during this film, people said that finally there's a film about, like, we had the perfect example is during Toronto Film Festival, after the screening, after the premiere, the lady approached us and she said, thank you for this film. This film is the only film I saw recently that shows Christian faith, and it doesn't attack church like everyone attacks church now. You don't attack it. It just shows the sins of people, and it's a beautiful film about faith, and it's a beautiful film about solitude, being rejected, and reconciliation and redemption. And right after her, the next person was a guy who said, thank you for this film. Finally, somebody in an intelligent way showed how Christian church is corrupt. So, you know, I think, you know, it's somewhere in between. We were able to put the needle in between the two parties, and we didn't take parts in the conflict. And we just wanted to show people rather than systems. And I think it, you know, the audience in Poland appreciated as a step further in sort of reaching the hand through the fence towards the other side. And this film was meant to be like, sort of like, I wanted to show with the film people coming together as a community. So it was for a lot of our audiences, I think, understood it as kind of a reaching hand, and that was great. That's probably the best thing that happened with Corpus Christi. That was everyone saw something they could support and, you know, cherish in the film, even though these people were from different sides of the globe and different sides of the fence. Conservatives, liberals, leftists, everyone had something in it, and it wasn't contradictory.
Mm. No, I remember that very clearly. After the premiere in Venice, you were really emphasizing, I think, in public, that you did not want to criticize or you did not want to judge church by no means. And for me, it's true that for me the film is more about the faith and more about the pure, you know, faith that we rarely see sometimes in the people. And then what we see in Daniel is something, it's something like magical. It works. But Bartosz Belenia, where and how did you find him?
Well, Bartosz is he's a pretty well-known character. He's in Poland. I think he's one of the most prominent actors of his generation, but mostly for theater goers. People in theater appreciated Bartosz for many years. He was on stage when he was, I think he was 7 or 6 or something. So he loved stage more than camera. And so I think filmmakers liked Bartosz, but because he's so specific with his looks, they were kind of reluctant to hire him for major roles. I think that's why probably Bartosz was mainly playing villains, cuckoos, psychos, because of his looks and his expression. And he's so much more. I saw him on stage, and I saw him performing, and it was so versatile, so different. So he has such a range of his actor's tools. So, but I wasn't thinking of Bartosz. There's this other character, Pincher, Tomasz Ziętek. He's pretty well known in Poland. He played in a few films in the lead. So he's a star. And my producers were pretty sure, and I was kind of thinking of Tomasz from the beginning. It's the easy way for a director. Like, who would play in my film? You just take somebody who, you think of someone who is very popular, and you got it. You know, you have different types. You have more handsome type. You have more, simple, more down-to-earth type, whatever. And so I was thinking about Tomasz. And I obviously invited Tomasz for the audition. Then I invited a lot of young actors and actresses. But for Daniel, I think that we had... it was two ways. I'm trying to always have my auditioning process specific for the film. I'm trying to not repeat the auditioning process. So in this film, I wanted actors who'd come for the audition to perform two things. One was the improv they had to, in their own words, run a sermon in church and come up with their song. I wanted them to sing the church song. And I wanted them to sort of convince me, regardless of my, faith affiliation, convince me to something, like a value, or through their words. So, and the other task was, the second task was to, express anger towards the camera. So as if they're these streetwise characters angry at their friend who had turned them in at the police station. So a lot of these, actors, they were great. They came, it was around 300 actors. And it's funny enough, it was 50-50s, 50% of them were great at performing as priests, and the other 50 was great at being, streetwise characters. And Bartosz was the only one who came, and he was basically he wasn't good at none of these things. I was expecting somebody, I was literally, as anybody would do, I was literally looking for someone who would contain the bad guy and the good guy in one. And Bartosz was the only one who came, and he started to intellectualize it. He had long hair, he had a beanie, a long sweater, he was very skinny. He's pretty well known. We're friends, so I can tell it. He's like a hipster. So he's like he had a dog with him, and so he's all about climate change, and he fights with Extinction Rebellion. He very much supports it. So everyone knows about it. And when I told my producers I'm interested in Bartosz Bielania, they're like, well, he's great in theater, but not here, man. This is like, he was horrible during the audition, because he wasn't a priest and he wasn't a streetwise character. Like, what do you want? Like, what can you do? And I said, well, this is interesting, because thanks to him, I understood that this character is not a priest and he's not a streetwise character either. Like, this character is about something different. Like, being a streetwise character is also a social role, like being a priest. And these are just masks. And the real person is somewhere else. And that was my mistake when I was thinking about Corpus Christi initially. And Bartosz was intuitively trying to teach me how wrong I am. And I think I heard the lesson I listened, and I invited him over again, even though my producers weren't super happy with it. Then again, I was inviting Tomek, the Pincher character, again and again. We had some other characters as well, so I was, circling for some months, and there was the scarcity of time, so I had to make up and come up with the decision. And I said, well, look, guys, my whole gut is telling me this is Bartosz. Like, he has something special, something cosmic in him. And he's charismatic, and we should just have it. I mean, in our film, we should just give it a try. And they said, okay, let's try. So he shaved his head, he started to build his muscles, and we went to 3 juvenile detention centers. We slept in one, even. And it was, we were talking with a lot of, with some revolutionary priests in Poland. There are some which are unorthodox, really. And suddenly Bartosz became the character, and he contained it. And it was like Tetris, like playing Tetris. It was a multi-layered construction. It was not easy. The whole thing here in this film was not to get lost in masks, in ways. So Bartosz was not only playing Daniel, who is playing a streetwise character, then this Daniel playing streetwise character, and then playing as a streetwise character a priest, and then finding his own voice, even in a fake personality, and then by the end finding his own sort of personality. And finding his own mission, he decides to go against everybody to seek the truth. So, the journey with Bartosz, with the script, was amazing because we had, by the end of the film, like 27 different Daniels. And me as a director, I had to really pull the strings so it works. And that was my ultimate goal, to have it. So that's why it seems simple, but it's not. It's a very complex structure. That's why I wanted everything else to be as simple as possible. The camera, the pacing of the film, it has its own dynamic, but I didn't want to exaggerate with other tools I had, because the whole structure is so complex.
Well, we have Bartosz eyes that are speaking, much more than any other cinematic, language. Listen, we have to come to the end of the conversation, but there is another question from the audience, and Modestus is asking about the last scene. Was it very difficult, and how many times you had to repeat the shooting of the last scene?
Well, it's I don't usually tell it that much, but I can tell you now. It's not one shot. We had 3 shots. There are, hidden cuts in the shot. We were designing the shot for like 2 months. I came up with it pretty early in the process. I wanted to end on a high note. I wanted this film because I felt like this film, if we calm everything down with the camera and it's on the lock off and it's a static camera, then it would be good intuitively to disrupt at the beginning and at the end. So at the beginning and at the end, you have 2 handheld cameras, camera scenes. So the end scene, I wanted to be real, abrupt, brutal, and I wanted also to look real. So we were rehearsing the scene for like 2 months. We had many rehearsals with stuntmen, and they were proposing us a lot of great solutions that we can, that was this whole choreography, like in a dance. And then by the end of it, when we have it all fixed, I asked them to make it dirty, so it doesn't look super professional, because these guys, they're not real fighters or something. They're not fighting dancers. They're gonna literally want to kill each other. So that's why we decided to make it dirty and unprofessional. So there's this moment in which Daniel holds the knee of Bonus, his opponent, and Bonus trying to keep his balance, jumping on one of his legs. And we decided to make it analog without using CGI. So the whole, so when Daniel starts the scene, he doesn't have blood on his face. And when he ends the scene, which seems like a one shot, he has basically, his face is in pieces. So we had 3 different cuts which are hidden in the scene, usually during pans. Well, we were panning with the camera, and then there is a cut, and then we were changing the actor's face more and more. And by the end of the scene, I decided to, because at first I had a few solutions. One was that Daniel loses in the film, and he's killed like some kind of a Jesus figure, like he sacrificed for our sins. But it was obviously, it was flat and stupid and not true. So I decided the other way, that Daniel kills the other person, the Bonus character. But also I think it's too simple. So I decided that it would be much more interesting to have him willing to suddenly kill the other, the Bonus character by the end of the film, but he is being dragged away by Pincher, who says, "Not you, Daniel, not you." And Pincher sort of saves him from committing this ultimate sin the second time in Daniel's life. But this time, I think, consciously and for real. And so that was the decision I made literally like 2 or 3 weeks ahead of the shooting of the film, of the scene, because I wasn't sure which way to go, and my intuition told me like, this is the way to go, like let's keep it that way. And we were trying, we had the whole day for it. We were trying to shoot it for the whole day. The process was technically very difficult, because we had to, during being on set, we had the editing. So in order to check if, the shots we're using, they fit with the pans, and so it works, and it seems like one shot. But we also had to decide which of these shots we're gonna use definitely, because every time he was fighting, the blood on his face was in a different position. So first, when he had a little capsule in his mouth with blood. So when he got hit really, and he got hit really, the capsule went like it filled his eye with the blood, and it was, we had to repeat it. The next time he almost broke his rib, so we had to make a little bit of. It's tough when the emotion is high. You have everyone. You have real people from juvenile detention center because we used real guys from like they were real, so they were also emotional, and they don't, you know, they don't feel the difference between reality and fakery that much. So sometimes, you know, it was too real, so I had to contain it. Also, and then when we had it all, he was basically bashing with his forehead, his opponent with his forehead, and then the camera leaves him, leaves this corridor, dark corridor, and then there's this whiteness all over the place. And that was the idea coming from my cinematographer, who said, let's try and overexpose. And I said, well, this is a mistake. We shouldn't do it. I was like, Jesus, man, let's keep it real. Let's keep it raw. And he said, no, trust me, man, trust me. This is the moment in which the main character is rebirth. It's his rebirth, like he's being born again. And it's subjective. You start the fighting with objective camera and very real, and there's this whole choreography with the camera and actors. But then you become subjective, and it's very different. And the main character stares into the camera. It's not real. You're looking into his soul by the end of the film. So let's keep it unreal, and it will emphasize this. And I said, okay, I trust you. And it stayed, even though I wasn't super convinced. But it stayed, and I happened to love it. And then my editor cut it by the end of the film. So there's this dirty cut. And he said, I have something to propose. I said, whoa, what about, there's no cutting, it's just one shot. And we had this whole sequence in which the camera runs with the main character as he escapes from the juvenile detention center. He runs to the bushes, and we're with him, and it's so poetic. And then, you know, he disappears in greenery, whatever. And he said, no, this is my proposition. And, you know, there's this cut by the end of it hasn't ended. There's like 1 minute left of what we shot. And he said, this is better because if you cut here, the last image of his face stays with you. You don't soothe. You're not making the scene more comfortable because he leaves. You keep it unanswered. Like there's a question mark by the end of the film, but also the film sort of screams rather than just states. And I said, I don't understand it, man. I wasn't a fan of it, but it's funny because the more I saw it, the many times I saw it, the more I liked it. So it stayed with us at the end. It's sort of like sometimes it's good to leave some obvious mistakes in what you do, because then there's this impression of the film being alive. You don't have to understand it, but sometimes it's better for the film, I think. It keeps people wondering, and that's why probably you asked me this question.
I really want to see that scene again after you said all the secrets behind it. It's really, really interesting. Well, thank you so much. We don't have more time, unfortunately, but I hope that next year with your next film, you will be able to be present in Vilnius during the festival.
That would be great. I'm hoping to bring my new film to you guys so I can show you. It's here. It's another scandal with the film. It's called The Hater. It's about cyber hate, like cyber harassment and people being hired to organize hate campaigns targeting celebrities and politicians. So it's already been a talk of the town for a while, but unfortunately, due to the situation we have everywhere in Europe, it's shut down now. But hopefully we will come back to life. We filmmakers, we all filmmakers, festival goers, festival organizers, we will come back stronger after it ends.
With this positive note, which gives us a lot of hope for the near future, we have to end. But thank you again, and stay safe, and be somehow creative, and in this time of closure.
Yeah, thank you, and you too. Stay safe.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.